The first thing I noticed was the smell. Not the money, not the blood. The smell, like wet dirt and gasoline baking in the Florida heat. I remember standing there on the side of that empty road with sweat running down my neck, staring at a black duffel bag half buried in the weeds beside a drainage ditch. And I remember thinking the exact same thing anybody would think. Someone forgot it. That was 3 months before 2 men died because of me. I wasn't supposed to be out there that night. My truck had overheated about 20 miles outside of town, and I pulled onto the shoulder near an abandoned citrus packing warehouse. It was close to midnight. No traffic, no lights except the moon and my flashlight. I popped the hood and realized I was screwed. No coolant. No signal on my phone. I started walking. The road curved past the old warehouse, then dropped beside a drainage canal filled with black water and cattails. That's where I saw the bag. At first I thought it was trash. Then my flashlight hit the zipper. It was expensive, heavy-duty canvas. Almost new. I climbed down into the ditch and grabbed it. Heavy, really heavy. The zipper was stuck halfway open. Inside were stacks of cash, vacuum-sealed bundles. Hundreds, so many hundreds I actually laughed out loud. I looked around immediately after like somebody was going to jump out of the darkness and yell that it was a prank. Nothing. Just frogs croaking somewhere in the canal. I should have called the cops. That's what everybody says when I tell this story now. But you have to understand where my head was back then. I was 34 years old, behind on rent, behind on child support, working 12-hour shifts at a body shop that barely paid enough to survive. My ex-wife had started talking about moving our daughter to another state because she thought I was unstable financially. So when I unzipped that bag and saw more money than I'd ever seen in my life, I didn't think about crime. I thought about escape. I carried the bag nearly 2 miles back to my truck. My hands were shaking the entire time. At home, I locked every deadbolt and dumped the money onto my kitchen floor. It looked fake, like movie money. I counted until sunrise, $387,000. I remember the exact number because I counted it 4 times. Most of it was clean, but some bundles had dark brown stains near the edges. That should have been enough warning. Instead, I wrapped the money back up and shoved it under my bed. Then I called into work sick. For the next 2 days, I barely slept. Every car outside made me look through the blinds. Every knock made my chest tighten. But nobody came. No police, no gangsters, nothing. By the 3rd day, I started convincing myself maybe it really was abandoned. Drug money maybe, insurance fraud, something criminal, something nobody could report missing. That's how people justify things. You build a story that makes you feel less guilty. I withdrew $2,000 from the bag and paid overdue bills in cash around town. Nobody questioned it. That should have made me feel better. Instead, it made me feel worse. Because now the money was real. Now I was involved. A week later, somebody knocked on my door at 2:11 in the morning. 3 slow knocks. Not loud. Controlled. I froze in bed. Then came 3 more. I grabbed the pistol from my nightstand and walked toward the door without turning on lights. A man's voice spoke from outside. "Your truck broke down last Tuesday." My stomach dropped instantly. I didn't answer. The voice stayed calm. "You picked up something that doesn't belong to you." I looked through the peephole. 2 men, both wearing plain black clothes, one tall and skinny, the other older with grey hair and gloves. No police badges, no masks. That scared me more. The older man leaned closer to the door. "We just want the bag." I backed away silently, then my phone buzzed in my hand. Unknown number, a text message. "We know your daughter's school." I nearly threw up. The men outside stayed patient, like they'd done this before. The older one spoke again. "You have until tomorrow night." Then they walked away. No threats, no yelling, just confidence. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I drove straight to my ex-wife's apartment and picked up my daughter from school early. I lied and said there'd been a threat near campus. Then I took both of them to a motel 2 towns over. My ex-wife kept asking what was happening. I kept saying I'd explain later, but I didn't know how. How do you explain something like that without sounding insane? That night, I finally called the police. I almost hung up twice before somebody answered. I told them everything except the amount. I said I found a bag. I said men were threatening me. The detective on the phone sounded interested until he asked where the money was now. I hesitated. Too long. His tone changed immediately. "Sir, how much money are we talking about?" I hung up. That's the moment I truly realized I was trapped. If I turned in the money now, I'd still look guilty. Possession, theft, maybe worse, and whoever owned it clearly wasn't afraid of violence. The next day, I installed cheap cameras outside my house. That night, around 1 a.m., one of them caught movement, the older man, standing alone on my porch, just staring at the door, not knocking, not moving, watching. He stayed there for almost 20 minutes. Then before leaving, he looked directly into the camera and smiled. The next morning, my neighbor's dog was dead, poisoned. A piece of sausage filled with blue pellets had been tossed into their yard. Wrong house. That was meant for me. I knew it. I packed the money into garbage bags and drove north without any plan. I just wanted distance. I kept checking mirrors constantly, convinced somebody was following me. Around sunset, I stopped at a gas station outside a tiny town near the Georgia line. That's where I met the woman. She worked behind the counter, late 40s maybe, tired eyes. I noticed her because she kept staring at me while I bought coffee. Finally, she said quietly, "You look like somebody's hunting you." I laughed nervously, then she glanced toward the parking lot. There's a grey SUV been sitting out there 40 minutes. My blood went cold. I looked outside carefully. Grey Explorer, tinted windows, engine running. The same vehicle I'd noticed twice earlier that day. I walked back to the counter slowly. "What do I do?" She studied me for a second. Then she handed me a key. "Room 7. My brother owns the motel next door." I probably should not have trusted her, but fear makes strangers feel like lifeboats. The motel room smelled like mildew and cigarettes. I kept the pistol in my lap while staring through the curtains all night. At around 3 a.m., headlights rolled slowly through the parking lot. Grey Explorer. It stopped outside room 7, 2 silhouettes inside, waiting. I held my breath so long my chest hurt. Then another vehicle suddenly pulled into the lot. Sheriff's cruiser. The Explorer drove off immediately. The deputy came to my door 5 minutes later, said somebody reported a suspicious vehicle. I almost told him everything, but then he asked my name. The moment I answered, his expression changed slightly. Just for a second. Recognition. He already knew who I was. That terrified me more than the men following me, because it meant they'd already asked around, maybe bribed people, maybe worse. I left before sunrise. I drove another 100 miles before stopping at a diner. That's where things finally unraveled. The television behind the counter was airing local news. A reporter stood outside the exact warehouse where my truck had broken down. Behind her were police lights and crime scene tape. The headline read, "Third body found in canal." Third body. My stomach dropped. The report said investigators believed the warehouse had been used for money laundering connected to a trafficking operation. 3 men had been murdered execution style over missing cash. One suspect remained unidentified. Then they showed security footage, blurry, grainy, but clear enough. Me, walking along this road the night I found the bag. People in the diner started looking at me. I stood up immediately and left. That's when I noticed the Grey Explorer parked across the street, waiting. I ran to my truck. The SUV pulled out behind me instantly. I drove like a maniac, 90 miles an hour down wet back roads. They stayed behind me the entire time. Finally, I turned onto a dirt road leading into the woods. Dead end. I realized too late. I slammed the brakes and grabbed the pistol. The Explorer blocked the road behind me. The older man stepped out calmly. No weapon visible, just those gloves again. "You should have returned it immediately," he said. Rain started pouring through the trees. I pointed the gun at him with shaking hands. "Stay back." He almost looked disappointed. "You think this money belonged to criminals?" "It did." "No," he said quietly. "It belonged to evidence." I frowned. He reached slowly into his jacket and pulled out a badge. Federal Marshal. My brain couldn't process it. He explained everything in pieces. The warehouse had been under investigation for months. The money was part of a federal sting. Corrupt agents inside the task force had tried stealing it during the operation. 3 informants ended up dead, and now everybody involved was hunting the missing cash before investigators uncovered the theft, including him. That's when I realized the worst part. He wasn't trying to recover evidence, he was trying to save himself. The skinny man got out of the SUV holding a shotgun. My hands started shaking harder. The marshal sighed. "Give us the money and you disappear." I almost believed him. Then I noticed blood on the skinny man's sleeve. Fresh blood, not mine, someone else's. The marshal followed my eyes and knew instantly he'd made a mistake bringing him. The skinny man smiled nervously. That smile told me everything. These weren't desperate men anymore. They were panicking. Panicked people make mistakes. The marshal reached for his waistband. I fired first. The shot hit him in the shoulder and spun him sideways into the mud. The skinny man raised the shotgun. Before he could fire, another shot exploded from the trees. Then 3 more. The skinny man collapsed beside the SUV. Real federal agents emerged from the woods yelling commands. Turns out the motel deputy had run my plates and connected me to the warehouse footage. When I fled, investigators tracked my phone and followed the corrupt marshal instead of arresting me immediately. The marshal survived long enough to confess. 4 arrests followed over the next month. 2 federal agents, a sheriff's deputy, and a customs officer tied to the trafficking ring. The money disappeared into evidence again. Every dollar, I didn't keep any of it, not a cent. People always ask if I regret picking up the bag. Truthfully, every day. Because even after everything ended, parts of my life never recovered. My ex-wife moved away anyway. My daughter still gets nervous when somebody knocks late at night, and sometimes I still wake up convinced I hear those 3 slow knocks on my door. The strangest part is this. For months before all this happened, I used to pray for a way out, more money, a better life, a lucky break. Then one night, on the side of a dark road, I found exactly what I asked for, and it nearly got me killed.